Welcome to lecture 14. This is the fourth lecture of module 3. In previous lecture, we discussed about various ways in which training need assessment has been done, organization level, task level, and also talked about person characteristics or employee specific analysis, so that we are aiming to improve upon where the performance deficiency is there. And we also looked at is training is the only alternative to address the performance deficiency. In case if there are other alternatives, a company should not spend resources in conducting training need assessment or actually carrying out a training program also. Only if you look at, yes, there are performance deficiency with respect to knowledge, skill and abilities of the employee, which can be done only through training, imparting training to my employees, and then you have to decide that yes, I need to invest resource and money on conducting training program. So now in today's lecture, we are going to discuss about what are the techniques we can use to conduct a training need assessment in an organization setup. Okay, so now let us look at what we are always seeing that yes, successful training need analysis, TNA, which is very important because it's used to identify two important aspects. One is about, it will say who needs training, and also it will also say what kind of a training is needed to him or her. Because through training need assessment, what are we trying to do? We are trying to find out what is the performance deficiency, and also we are trying to find out causes or reasons, causes and reasons for such performance deficiency. Through this, we are actually identifying, okay, who actually lacks this particular performance requirement, maybe the ability to do a job, or they lack skill, they lack knowledge. So we will be able to identify which set of my employees require training, and it will also tell me, okay, so this set, Z is a set of employees who require training, and also it will tell me what type of a training should be imparted. So let's say this is the box of content for a training. So this will tell me, okay, this is a set of training to be provided to my employees. So that is the major implication of conducting this training need assessment. Sometimes why we are talking about this implication is very important through this training need assessment. In absence of doing so, or maybe improper way of conducting training need assessment will lead to what? It can also lead to counterproductive to offer, you may be training of two individuals who never require a training program. It happens many times in an organizational setup, or even in a personal level also. You may not really require to take up some course, or maybe do not want to go through some workshops, maybe because you felt like wrongly decided that yes, I need the training. Similar is the case in an organizational setup as well. If this training need assessment is not efficiently or effectively done, it will lead to a counterproductive way of unnecessarily sending people who really do not require a training, or maybe you will come up with a training content which are not actually addressing the problem which were identified through training need assessment. So both these are a possibility if you are failing at this stage. That is why we are reiterating the fact that yes, training need assessment cannot be taken lightly, or you cannot ignore the process of training need assessment, unless otherwise you do it effectively. You will encounter this problem of wrong training, either a wrong training or otherwise sending a wrong people for a training. Either way, you are going to use the resources of an organization, and also you're going to take away the time of an employees who can otherwise be effectively utilized in their workplaces. Okay, so it also helps in to use the better use of the resources which are required to impart training to the employees. Okay, so we are going to look at what are the techniques we can use to conduct this training need assessment in an organizational setup or in any other context we are talking to. So one is direct observations, we are going to see in detail. Another is a questionnaire method, which are also very widely used method to understand from the employee perspective or the supervisor perspective, or maybe the multiple participants perspective, what does it require, what is the current position, and then also consultation with the persons in key positions, especially when you are looking at, as we are saying, proactive training. If you remember what we discussed in the previous lecture, that proactive training need assessment, which is essentially looking at what my business strategies. As a business, we are coming up with a new technology, new product. For that, you don't need to look at the performance deficiency as such, but you are looking at the prospective way to growth. So then, even in this case, if you are able to have a consultation with the key position people, they will be able to tell you, okay, what are the changes which is going to happen in a general business context, what we can actually do so that we can tap the opportunity, right? Similarly, we'll also review the relevant literature. There are extant literature is available. There are a lot of academicians who are regularly conducting research on the specific areas. Probably looking at reading from the literature also helps you to see what is going to come up or what are the existing deficiency they observe in a particular industry, particular domain specific areas. So that will also help in deciding, okay, what type of a training will be essential. For example, very recently with India being a hub for service industry, our large chunk of economic contribution comes from the services offered to foreign clients, where if you look at customer relationship management, it becomes very critical. Here, of course, performance deficiency assessment in an organization helps, but also through a recent literature survey, we can also identify what are the new developments happening on the customer relationship management, which are called CRM. So through that also, you'll be able to come up with deciding what type of a training I need to impart to my employees. And you can also conduct interviews. By conducting interviews with the specific set of employees who are performing the job also, will be able to draw insights from them to decide what is the need for a training in an organization setup. Similarly, you will also do focus group discussions. We are going to see in detail. Focus group discussion, yes, you will pick the people who are performing the actual job, maybe from different sections. If you are larger organizations, you might have to have a representations from different units, so that you will be able to get a better insight on what type of a training need assessment is required. And of course, you can also do assessment or a surveys. So assessment, on the job assessment, or there may be assessment centers. Larger manufacturing organization used to have their assessment centers, dedicated assessment centers, where these employees are taken and see how they perform the job. Are they effectively doing it, or are they having any deficiency in performance? So through assessment also, you'll be able to identify what does my employee lack, so that I can improve upon. And also through reports and records. For example, productivity or a diary in critical incident method has been followed in several industries, where the supervisor used to record the worst performances or the best performance, or a daily diary record. Through that also, you'll be able to identify what has been happening and how do we identify the training need through that method also. Let us see in detail. So direct observations, this technique is primarily dealt with data collection for training need assessment. When do we do for direct observation? When the area or deficiency what we are seeing is a very subjective in nature, and it's also possible in a formal work setting, where I can only conduct this being into the workstation. I cannot be sitting in a different place and observe. Then that kind of a situation is where you essentially have to do this through a direct observations. Who can be chosen for doing this? Managers who are in charge of a training, or probably supervisors who are supervising the subordinates. They can actually watch, pay attention, close attention to the employees who performs the job, and they can identify what is the gap in the skills or behavior which are resulting in the performance deficiency. So this observation method yields a lot of value in terms of identifying employee priorities, how employee perceive the job, how do they perform the job. Through these observations, you will be able to identify where do they lack, so where do they perform really bad, or maybe where they are not able to do well. In all this perspective, by observations, you will be able to see how good they are in delivering the particular job or a task which are assigned to them. By this observations method, you will be able to understand, okay, what my employees are lacking, so that I can actually target that through my training programs. Now comes the next one, is what are the advantages of this observation method? It actually generates a very specific data on the specific job. It is not something I do a general survey with everybody in different job roles. Rather, I do specifically for a specific set of job on their job place, so which is more reliable data, so that I am able to understand what is the deficiency which are actually happening in my workplace. And when by observations, you are not asking the employees to either come to an assessment center or take the survey or participate in interviews, which is essentially taking their time, or rather it will interrupt their regular routines in a job. And now in this method, what essentially happens, the manager goes and just observe the way the employees are performing. It doesn't interrupt their regular routines. And what are the disadvantages of this observation method? Here the criticality comes, the observer who is should be really skilled. Unless otherwise, the observer is not that competent, who do not have the potential to observe, to identify, then finally the outcome of this assessment will be rather it will lead to a counterproductive way of identifying that this is the deficiency, which is not the case maybe. So then employees' behavior may be affected by being observers. Sometimes when a supervisor all the time looking at you or observing you, likely that yes, employees behavior may be affected, or probably some employees become so anxious that my manager or my supervisor or maybe the external person or a consultant is observing me, likely that they might perform what they really used to do. And feedback can be sometimes unstructured because it's not very specifically designed. How do you observe, what time to start your observations, what is the sequence under which you need to observe. That cannot be done in observations because it should be more of unstructured way of looking at things. You observe the whatever way you are good at, but the feedback may also be unstructured. So these are some of the disadvantages of the observation technique. Okay, now let us do the questionnaires. So questionnaires are mostly used method for a training assessment. It's a way to collect information from a large pool. In an organization setup, let's say you are identifying some role called X, and you find there are n number of employees work in this particular role, and collecting information from this n by conducting observations or doing individual interview is humongous, and it will take a lot of time. Then probably you have to sort for this questionnaire where you will be able to reach out to the large pool without doing this very intensive way of sitting with each individuals. And questionnaires used to gain a lot of information which was not earlier known to the organizations. So questionnaires are also commonly used to verify information that are gathered using the other methods. It's kind of validation also. Questionnaire act as a validation or probably used as a cross validation. Already I have collected some information through interviews or probably from the diary or regular diaries or observations. Now I need to cross validate whether it is really a case. Through questionnaire also you will be able to do. And in this method, when meeting of employee is not an option, and it used to get information in a time bound manner. For example, I can float a questionnaire and I say, okay, this is a period which I wanted to collect the data. Probably I fix 2 weeks time. I send the questionnaire to all my employees, as I said, all these employees, and then I can collect within the stipulated time period. Now we also see what are the advantages and disadvantages of this questionnaire method. It is of course it's a quick access to employees. Employees can quickly respond, and large number of employees can be covered, and results of the analysis can be confidential, in the sense individual employees need not to disclose their identity when they fill the questionnaire. They can mask their identity, rather they can just only give the information which are required. In this way, what we are actually looking at now, you can uncover some of the unravel the truth which require a training. And some of the disadvantages are, when we talk about the questionnaire, the dropout rate is high. When you talk about the response rate, let's say 100 employees are reached out to fill the questionnaire, you might find 70% of them only responded. So dropout rate is really high. And also sometimes what will happen, there can be potentially missing information or missing values, we call it missing value or information. Some column or some questions may not be answered by the participants. That's also possible. This will cause having a better information to assess the need. And also misinterpretation is likely to occur because a employee might perceive this question is related to that, and then they might respond differently. That's also possible. And sometimes the time frame is not maintained, the period may be extended. That may not be relevant to the current problem we are addressing. Now we will move to the next one, consultation with the person in key positions. This method is useful to identify the training need, because this will help in determining whether the performance deficiency is actually resulting from a lack of knowledge, skills or ability, or from a work design problem. Because when you talk to the experts or a key person who are in the managerial position or who are looking after the whole unit itself, they will be able to tell you, no, this problem is not actually from their abilities or knowledge skill, it is because of the work design, maybe the way shop floor is designed. Let's say this is a sequence it goes, probably this is not a way to design. We have to look at the circular way of designing. If this flow goes like this, it may not be better. So maybe because of the workplace setting or workstations or a motivational factor, you will be able to identify better. So, and they will also able to determine employees' readiness for training, which is very important, because the willingness of employees to go through the training, these key positions people will know better information about what is the readiness of my employees to go for a training program. Okay, and next one is about a review of relevant literature. It is we are referring to the existing information available on the secondary source of informations, where we are talking about a lot of communities where academicians are involved in conducting a lot of research, or industry academia collaborations all resulted in already existing literature. A body of literature is available. You could review all those aspects which are talking about, for example, some research would have been conducted in addressing the deficiencies or optimizing the workplace behavior among the employees. Critical aspects of the business may be already done, a lot of researches which are available, so you will be able to review those, understand and see, okay, what is the gap which are arising on this, so that the training can be designed. Though this is one of the effective method of conducting training need assessment, especially when you look at some future scope you are looking at, or an opportunity way you are looking at it. The reviewing relevant literature will be so helpful to show what is happening in an industry with respect to upcoming new technology or a tool. So this this technique will be very useful when you are looking at proactively trying to do, or looking at tapping the opportunity through training program. Okay. What are the advantages? Yes, good source of information on procedure, task information, new jobs, and jobs in process being created, or objectives which are available through literature reviews. There are common forums are available which you will be able to access information. So disadvantages, maybe technical knowledge may not be understood. For example, the way technically they have written it may be not easy for an employee or a manager who is at the organization to interpret the informations, also challenging, and sometimes some of the materials or a method they used may be absolute, then you cannot relate. Okay. Now let us look at the next one, which is an interview method, which allows you to collect data on performance gaps while talking with each employee or a group of employees. So conducting interview, one-on-one interview, it allows you to go for whether a formal interview or an informal discussions during the break time or post office hours. You can conduct interviews in person, meeting the employee, or over a phone, or through other meeting platforms, at work locations or anywhere. You can able to talk to the people, and you can choose the representative of the employees to talk about the specific information, so that you will be able to identify what are the training needs for this particular section of the employees. So what are the advantages? It can actually explore the unanticipated issues that may come up during the conversations. It may be very surprising information might come up. They may be feeling that the way the machine being used, or the way it has been operated, you will be getting a surprising information from when we are having an interview. Sometimes you will be feeling that the productivity percentage is going low. You may be attributing that it's because my employees lack knowledge or a skill to run the machinery. Probably you will find out it is because of the bad supervisor that they are not able to do well. So some interesting information can come up during the interviews with the employees, and of course questions can be easily modified during the conversations. The interviewer, you will be able to modify the questions so as to get more information from the participant, and it also good at uncovering some of the training need, and also causes and solutions to the problem. So these are the advantages of the conducting interviews when you want to identify the need assessment. But what are the disadvantages? Of course, every method has its positive as well as some of the challenges, or I would call it as a disadvantages, where you say it is again time consuming. When you look at the small and medium sized enterprises, you cannot take that liberty of conducting interviews with so many employees, taking longer time, which will essentially will cause the small and medium sized enterprises. It may not be the same case with the larger organization, because a larger organization has resources in terms of money and also in terms of the human resources to conduct this process, whereas in the small and medium sized enterprises, which are challenging, so they go for other alternative methods of conducting this training need analysis. And some another challenging thing comes from a difficult to analyze. Some people or maybe some organization face very challenging things to know how do I analyze the information which I collected from the interviews. So how do you are you going to create a transcripts, and are you going to code, classify informations? How are you going to arrive at the need? It may be challenging unless otherwise there is a people who are good at qualitative analysis. The qualitative analysis we mean the data collected from interview is a qualitative information, so which are rich information, but unless otherwise you do not analyze properly, then you will not be able to identify the right way of identifying the needs. So needed skilled interviewers. We need interviewers who can probe, have a conversation which can facilitate more information from the employees. So for that, interviewers has to be skilled or at least trained to conduct interviews. And sometimes it's also difficult to schedule. We see large number of larger organizations where employees during the office hours they're really busy. You cannot get them, or post office hours they have their own commitments. It will be very challenging to schedule these interviews. Even if you schedule, that might cut into some of the productive work hours. So these are some of the disadvantages of interviews. Now comes to the focus group discussion, which is also another qualitative method where employees focus groups are investigative research events where up to 8 to 10 employees meet with a facilitator to discuss in an open forum about their current experience of learning development and their future needs. What do they experience as a challenge in the current workplace, or do you also see whatever the prospective need you are looking at, what you want going forward in an organization setups. So employee focus groups are very useful in establishing a very comprehensive range of opinions, because the moment we have more employees together, it's kind of a brainstorming where many people talk about different challenges, deficiency, or what do they lack in the workplaces, or what kind of a support is not provided by the company or an organizations. So it will provide more opinions, very diverse views will come out, then it will act as a resource for an organization to conduct a specific training need assessment, and then they will be able to identify the right need of training. Okay, so what are the advantages? Yes, it is useful for a complex or a controversial issues, because when you are talking about something very controversial issues are happening in organizations which are sensitive, when we talk about in a group focus group discussions where there are diverse perspectives, diverse opinions, everybody will give their perspectives, and it become a larger informations you can get, and questions can be modified to explore unanticipated issues. Yes, a facilitator plays a very critical role. He or she can facilitate the conversations, they can probe more information from the employees, and it reduces risk that training may be rejected by the stakeholders. Why? If you understand, when you conduct a focus group discussion, what happens, there are at least some section of the employees are participating in the focus group discussions, and when they discuss about some of the needs, and in a way they're accepting to the fact that these are what is required and these are the deficiencies. When you offer a training, there will be more acceptance, because they feel that yes, they identify this particular input from us, so they are customizing a training program, so I need to take this training program. It is kind of, you said I want this, we are offering you a training, you take it. So the more acceptance from the stakeholders. Otherwise in the other methods which are individual in nature, the larger acceptance may be not high. So again, disadvantage is very similar to any qualitative method. It's of course a time consuming one, and group members give information only what they think manager wants to hear. we also see conformity, group conformity, or do not want to share information which are my manager may not like it. Probably that will also cause getting specific information. Which, so for this, very importantly, the facilitator has to build the confidence on the participant that yes, whatever information will be generated from this will be purely for a purpose of scheduling the training program, identifying the deficiency, rather than not referring to which individual is said what. So that will actually help in addressing this disadvantages of the focus group discussion. Okay, now the next one is about assessment and surveys. Surveys conducted to define the target group of the training, who is the target group, then you specifically send them the survey to get informations, and also larger information can be obtained from the assessments, as I say, through assessment center or the on-the-job assessment, or in a specific laboratory setting. You will be assessing the employee, how do they do, based on that you will identify. So a survey needs to produce the following elements in a report. When you conduct a survey, you need to say what is the training subject, importance of the training, time requirements, who is the target group or a potential target group for the training, how frequently you are going to conduct the training, what is the duration of the training, and what are the required outputs of the training, meaning that out of the training program, what is the probable outcome which you are going to see from the training program. Okay, and what are the advantages of this assessment and surveys? It is inexpensive compared to the other methods, and data can be easily summarized, because through survey you are collecting a quantitative data, it can be summarized, you will be able to do a lot of quantitative analysis, and you can also collect large information from large amount of employees, as like the questionnaire method we are talking about. And now comes the disadvantages is that yes, of course it's required time when you want to reach out to the larger employees, and when you also develop a survey, your questionnaires has to be built efficiently. You have to test whether those questions are relevant, which will take inputs from the employees, and again very similar to questionnaire method, the response rate, people who respond to the survey may be one of the disadvantages, and sometimes, as I was saying, inappropriate responses or missing values also possible, and information given only on questions asked particularly, it is not giving room for you to tap the other aspects, because whatever the questions you ask, they will only respond to the specific questions. You may not be able to get additional information through this survey methods. Okay, then the other one is we are talking about records and report studies, where company through company report or records available in an organization, you will be able to identify the training needs. There are several tools have been developed to understand, address the training deficiency in the workplace through reviewing the reports or records of career advancement of the employees. Because as I said, in an organization setup, you come up with a report based on the productivity, efficiency, or the kind of activities you do. Similarly, diaries are main method. There are multiple records are available, or reports are available for you to review. Through that also you will be able to identify, okay, what type of training is required. And for example, let's say through the report you find a number of customer or a client complaints are really high. It is also indicating that either my employees who are at the end to respond to the clients are not performing well, or probably they're not really skilled enough in an interpersonal relation, or maybe you observe many conflicts occur within the team. These are all through the diaries or the reports you will be able to identify what type of training I can actually do through this assessment. Okay, what are the advantages and disadvantages of this through records and report studies to identify the training needs? It will minimizes the interruption of the work. Yes, it doesn't interrupt anybody's work, because you are reviewing the already available reports and the records, and it requires limited human resource. In case of electronic database, when the information are already stored in a repository of a data which are available to the right person who wanted to access and understand, then it doesn't require a lot of human resource. A few people are sufficient. Now if you look at most of the organizations have enterprise resource planning, which is called ERP, and all informations are through SAP. You collect a lot of information, data about your regular routines, your calls, productivity, efficiency, whatnot. A lot of things are covered through. So now you don't need a people or another method to do it. With this, you will be able to retrieve all data through the data you will be mining this specific data, okay, mining specific information. Then you understand what is the training need. So this is possible, so it requires less people and provided records related to performance and practice which are already available. So these are the advantages. What are the disadvantages? So manager may use records and report to punish employees because there are specific informations with respect to employees. They might use it as a tool to punish the employees. They identified, okay, who are a poor performer, rather they give them the poor performance rating, or even punish them. No incentives will be provided rather than providing the training. Means instead of facilitating a training, rather they will punish the employees. And available records and reports may be incomplete, or maybe sometimes the information provided are unstructured in nature, which are very multiple informations are available, or maybe which is not in a structured manner. Cluttered informations are available. This is also one of the disadvantages of looking at the reports and records. Maybe sometimes also informations are not adequate enough to conclusively decide this is the need for conducting a training program. Okay, so these are the references. Today we looked at the various techniques we can use in a workplace setup to identify the training need assessment, which is very important because unless otherwise you do not know what type of a technique or what type of a method in which I can conduct the training need assessment, because we know that this training need assessment is a precursor for all the subsequent activities. We know program design, delivering the program, money, or the resource person who's going to deliver, and the outcome, transfer of training. Everything is primarily dependent on the training need assessment. It is very important that you conduct a proper training need assessment using these techniques. So we are going to look at the competencies in the next lecture. So what is competency? How do we build the competencies among employees? Or for a specific job role, how do we identify the competencies required to perform a specific job role in the upcoming lecture? Thank you.